comprehensive web-based system for ground improvement. Jeff, if you're ready, the floor is yours.
Christina, thank you so much, and good afternoon to you all. I am ready and looking forward to talking to you about those two topics that Christina has mentioned. And I will show some slides, and you can see the first one on the screen. And I will talk a bit about the IDEA program, innovation developments, enhancements, and advancement program, and then geotech tools. And the first thing I do want to let you know is these are both excellent professional opportunities that the Geo-Institute took over from Federal Highway and DOT. Federal Highway might have an opportunity to kind of kickstart some of these programs, but after a while they look to graduate because they're not really in the business to manage these full time. So GI came in with the opportunity and took both of these over from Federal Highway and DOT, and they've been very successful. And I'm going to show you some successes, also show you some case studies that we have already, and some other information. But I just congratulate GI for taking on these projects and developing and devoting resources to both IDEA and to geotech tools. That's me on the bottom left. Again, as Christina said, I'm a project manager for the Geo-Institute. All right, next slide. So let me talk about IDEA first. The bottom line, or really in a nutshell, it's a standard protocol to review earth retaining systems and then publishing that review so anyone can be available to the analysis and the report. The majority of the target audience for these reports are state DOTs, either or Federal Highway, but certainly there's opportunities for private owners and certainly opportunities for professionals and academics to take a look at a fully detailed analysis of an earth retaining system. This is the protocol cover I'm showing on the right. It documents the standard protocol and also documents some of the management systems associated with that. And if you can see on the second to last paragraph, the goal of the IDEA program is to foster further innovation. So not only have we analyzed existing systems with fairly long track records, we also did a system that was innovative, and I'll show you a little bit about what we did with that one as well. Further, this is the website. When you go to IDEA, you'll see this initially, and there's a couple of buttons here on the upper left, evaluation reports, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then one of the exciting things is we have additional DOT system approval requirements. So an IDEA analysis, you might think about it, it gets either the wall supplier, maybe 80% of the requirements. Some states might fill in with 20%. Some states might only fill in with 1%. But it allows a wall supplier, the audience who is doing this work, to do an analysis on a standard protocol that can be applied to all states and federal agencies. As a program within GI, I just want to give you a sense of some of the management system, because we make sure that we're objective, that we're transparent, and that the protocols are maintained. We do have a review panel, and you can see that roster on the right-hand side. We do have DOT participants. We do have professional participants. We do have company participants. We do have academic participants. Their job is to meet at least once a year, and we typically meet at Geo-Congress, and they basically take a look at the program. And as a staff person to this committee, I report on the activity. And more importantly, we kind of look at feedback from some of the analyses, as well as the recipients of the analyses, the state DOTs, for example, and figure out if we need to go ahead and update that protocol. So, final answer. Here are the systems that we have evaluated, and these systems are publicly available, and they're on the GI website under a tab, and I will show you where that's located towards more the end of the presentation. There is 11, I believe, that are listed here. The pilot, which was VistaWall, was in August of 2018, and we just completed the last two, one in August and one in October. And the download button is exactly that. You can download that report, and I'll show you some examples of those as well. Again, just looking at the top, these eval reports provide a summary of technical review. The final report helps state and local agencies evaluate more efficiently. Again, standard protocol. So once a state DOT gets used to one report, the selling point for wall suppliers is when they do another idea or another company does an idea, the state DOT is already familiar with the standard protocol and the way the report is laid out. The other thing I just wanted to point out is that any users of this system can submit questions or comments. So there's an opportunity right here, right now, to submit a question on any eval that's been downloaded, and certainly that email will eventually come to me, and then I'll tell you in a minute how we process those. The evaluations are fundamentally started with a checklist, and that checklist has a lot of functions, one of them being the table of contents for the report, the other being the required information from the wall supplier. And we have 8 checklists. So these are the systems that we can evaluate. Concrete modular block with extensible and inextensible reinforcement, precast panels, steel facing. We also have just a precast modular, concrete modular without any reinforcement. And then this is a new system, a reinforced slope system, and I'll show you that in a minute. And what I'm showing on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, is the systems that we used, and these are the analysis that was used for these particular systems. R is Ready Rock. They evaluated a modular block extensible, Stone Strong, Keystone, Anchor. Lock and Load did a precast panel with extensible reinforcement. Other systems used precast concrete panels with steel reinforcement. Rico, EarthTech, MSE Plus. Stone Strong did a good activity. They decided that they wanted to do 2 analyses, or what we call the supplemental analysis. So the analysis was on the concrete modular block with extensible reinforcement, but they also said take out the reinforcement and let's see about analyzing it as a precast modular retaining wall. And then finally, this company, Green Step, this is an innovative product, has only had pilot walls built, and we did an evaluation on that one as well. So again, you can see that we have really good experience in doing, some of these systems. We don't have much experience in steel facing, extensible and extensible. I'm not sure what systems are out there that might fall into that category. Again, these are volunteer programs. So these companies, Lock and Load, Ready Rock, Stone Strong, has gotten some pull or some push from some of their marketplace that they decided that they want a standardized analysis. So they come to GI, they apply. There are some fees associated with this, and then we go through the analysis. Each of those reports that you've seen on the download functions has this exact same cover page from the Geo-Institute, talking about who the contact information is. And again, this is just page 1 of 5. And the real heart of this is that, and I bolded it here, the applicant has been through its responses and the review team, I'll talk about that in a minute, finds that there's no outstanding issues that should be brought to the attention of any agencies. Rather, the agencies are encouraged to rely on the system for their evaluations. So we don't approve it, we don't recommend it, we don't endorse it. Instead, we just do the analysis to put it in a standardized format and use our team expertise to let transportation agencies know that it is a viable system, and you can feel confident that it's been reviewed by professionals. Certainly, it's the DOT's job to make sure that it meets some of the particular requirements. But as I mentioned before, retaining wall suppliers can get to 80% of the requirements. Every single report that I showed you on that screen before, those 11, have the same first cover page, of course, related to that particular system. So what I did, I cast it out to the current idea. I'll call them certificates. You can think of that about this as a labeling program. It has a stamp of a label from the GI, but here's some comments. The idea evaluation has been helpful in the following state DOTs, includes new renewals, etc. So here's the list of that. This one, a participant decided. Another quote: we typically find that most DOTs require independent evaluation, an idea or a combination, and they list some state DOTs. Another system, I knew for certain that Indiana DOT uses the evaluation. Indiana's at the point where they need an idea evaluation to be performed, and that's kind of our goal, is to make sure that suppliers can do a standardized evaluation and spend that money once to get almost all the way to a DOT approval list, and then decide how to market within each state. And then finally, soon after the IDEA evaluation was completed, I submitted it to Caltrans, and thanks to IDEA, the evaluation process, I believe the document is sufficiently complete for their process. So I guess a lot of good accolades, a lot of good feedback. And when we talked in our evaluation committee, the roster I showed you a couple slides before, we do hear other field reports from all sides, regulators, academics, professionals, suppliers. I just want to give you kind of a snapshot. I pulled this out of some of the reports. This green step system, this is the system here in this graphic. It was new and innovative, and it didn't have any kind of actual construction, just some pilot projects. So for this one, we did supplement the protocol by doing a site visit. We typically will not do that with a well-established system, but this system here I'm showing all the way on the left-hand side. It was innovative enough and not that much experience that we discussed this with the wall supplier, and they agreed, and we did a site visit, and that allowed us to complete the idea analysis. And that was the last comment where they submitted that to Caltrans, and they felt that was a good thing to do because Caltrans is much more in a position to accept the analysis. That just, again, so there's a whole bunch of graphics in these reports. They're approximately 400 plus pages. And what we try to do is give you some navigation within the report. So the wall supplier does spend some time making sure that there's some links. And you can see here that this is the table of contents of a report. We also give this as a cover page. We also require case studies. This is an MSEW Plus analysis. There's construction requirements. There's construction handbooks. There's layout details. And then we do require them to give us all the appropriate parameters for the MSEW analysis. So that is part of the report. So any state DOT can see those right away. So just wanted to give you a snapshot of what's in there. It's not everything, but it does cover quality assurance. It does cover the table of contents, the case studies, layout. And it also provides details of the components, as you can see here. So there's a lot of good information in that report. And it all follows this table of contents, which in essence is this checklist, which I mentioned to you before. This is just one of the checklists that I showed on that listing, that there are 8 of them. And this one is dealing with probably a extensible reinforcement. And essentially, we have a standardized section activity. We have a questionnaire for the wall supplier, and then there is a requirement to provide the evidence for each of those lines, for each of those rows. So these checklists are about 3 to 4 pages, and that gets filled out, and then that information and what we call the submittal, which comes from the wall supplier, can then decide how they want to respond. So let me talk to you a little bit about the analysis. We have a team of 4 professionals. They are well experienced in the design and construction of earth retaining systems. Most of them have over 20 years of experience, own companies, working for companies, federal highway, DOT. We assemble that group together of 4, and there's one lead who does most of the analysis, and then there are 3 reviewers who kind of provide the oversight and take a look at the final detailed review and make sure that it's consistent and make sure that it meets engineering practices. And this dialogue between the team, the lead reviewer, and then the client, or the applicant, I call it, is approximately 3 months of review. Now, it will take longer if the review team says you don't have enough testing on a certain component, or the testing configuration was not what we would recommend, or what might be requirement for the standard for some of the AASHTO standards. So we would have to go back to them, and they would decide to either agree to do that testing, which would take some time, or they could decide to pause their evaluation for a longer period of time, but because they need to figure out how they might do a new testing protocol for that individual component. So we're pretty transparent. We have a schedule, if you will, with different certain waypoints or milestones, and you can see there is applicant, administrator, that would be me, review consultant, that's the lead. The one person does the initial analysis, and then the review team looks at that. So this pre-submittal phase, I kind of get involved in that and just take a look at to make sure that everything is in order, and then I would identify a team, make sure that team is available, and then of course make sure that team is acceptable to the applicant. Maybe there's some activity that the applicant, one of the team members actually helped with the report or with the submittal, and that would be appropriate to have that person review it as well as an independent review. Then the team leader spends some time doing the submittal check and just kind of make sure we have nothing missing, some of the details from that checklist, and getting applicant response. Once the reviewer, the review consultant is satisfied that everything is there, then that person will do that detailed submittal review. And it's after this point here that then that detailed submittal review will then get sent to the review team, and the comments that are logged in kind of a spreadsheet format, if you will, and then once those are agreed to, all those comments get sent to the wall supplier. And some of those comments are, what you might consider nonconformities. They need to address this. Some of the other comments might be, what, this would improve the submittal because we know who the client is, and we suggest that you do that. And there are milestones for each of these phases. There are also fees for each of these phases. So we don't have a one set fee at the beginning because there's a potential of this pausing at some point. So we want to make sure that the wall supplier, the client, is committed up to the point of where their application is and their review is, so they don't pay a full amount until they actually get the final report. Again, some of these have been done in three months. One of them needed some new testing on their connection, and that took about a 6 months to do that testing. So you can imagine that they do vary, but it's really based on the applicant and what information the reviewers need to complete the report. What we tell DOTs and owners to incorporate IDEA as a tool for system approval. The owner may require supplemental information, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. For example, California, you can imagine they have looked at an IDEA report. You saw that one comment from Green Step that says it's getting us close, but they also have about 5 pages of supplemental requirements. The owner would modify the current approval requirements to include IDEA. So that's what we've been working with, and that's what Federal Highway has been helping us with. That's what our evaluation review committee, that's why we have DOTs on there so they can hear as well what we're doing and how vital and how useful the report is. So finally, let me just talk a little bit about the supplemental information that's available. There was an analysis done about 2 years ago looking at each individual state DOT requirement. That's listed here on the right-hand side. They're available for download for free. So not only does this help a wall supplier, but it may help a professional who is thinking about a project in a certain state. This is a ready available portal so they can get that information. Or an academic that wants to introduce themselves and their students to different state DOT requirements, maybe a comparison of a lot of requirements versus none. So those are available for free. So please take a look at that. Just examples of what might be the differences. Here in Indiana, accepts DOT's reports as vendor approval. Here in Colorado, there's no supplemental requirements. So you can see that there are differences. And I'm very happy to report that Federal Highway, Daniel Azamora, as a matter of fact, had kind of done a qualitative analysis on each of these requirements. I guess it's easy to say none. That's probably a pretty easy one to categorize, but he did tell me that it was kind of a qualitative review. So I'm not sure what minor and medium might mean in terms of whether it's on the reinforcement, whether it's on the loading condition. Or I'm just not sure what that would be. And I guess it's pretty easy to say that something's got a lot, supplemental requirements are high, many pages of requirements. But for the wall supplier, it's a starting point. It allows them to say, if I do an IDEA report, I can at least be viable in this many states. And I can be very close in this many states. So there's a lot of opportunity here for this to be used. And I guess one of the things I did talk to Brad Keeler about is potentially posting this up on our website with a whole bunch of caveats, of course. That's IDEA. And so I wanted to show you and pause for a minute. Again, this is the GI website. I hope you're all familiar with this. IDEA is under a special projects tab. And then I do want to spend, I think, about the next 5 minutes or so talking about geotech tools. again, I wanted to focus this presentation more on really looking behind the curtain for idea. But I do want to spend a second on geotech tools. Again, another program assumed by the GI, came out of federal highway or the DOT funding, and allowed GI to kind of adapt this program for its use and for its professional use. Unlike IDEA, that is funded by fees, Geotech Tools is free to anyone in the world, but we do have some sponsors to make that possible. So I just want to say a thank you to our sponsors here. These are the companies that have been designated founding sponsors. We also have sponsors as well as affiliates. We're working with the DFI, who helped us with some in-kind research on geotech tools. Just to let you know that this program graduated from Sharp 2. Bern Schaefer and George Fitz were the principal investigators. They did a lot of work, and they still are continuing to be involved. At least Vern is, and so to make the program even better than it was. We do have a requirement for some demographics, user organizations, but this is the graph that I really like, because it shows that there is a majority of 0 to 5, meaning a graduate to 5 years experience, and they are coming to geotech tools. And I do know that a lot of academics that I meet do recommend geotech tools in the classroom, so they could take a look at that. And then, of course, there are some of the luminaries, the very experienced professionals that probably go back to there and say, I need to remember about this type of analysis, and then take a look at geotech tools for that. But I like the graph from the 0 to 5, and when I talk to academics, which I hope there are some here on this call, I let them know that it's available, it's free to use, and certainly if there's any questions, you can get a hold of me or anyone else at the Geo-Institute. Lots of technologies in here. So each of those shown on the left-hand side essentially has these 8 categories: case histories, photographs, QA, QC, etc. So for every one of these systems, you can go in and choose that system and then see these 8 different areas to take a look at. Last year and this year, we've been trying to focus on case histories, and we actually did some work to get some more case histories into geotech tools. Here's just an example of a mechanically stabilized earth. Again, a notional sketch, and you can see down at the bottom there is these categories. But I do wanted to point out that this type of system has a whole bunch of case histories. Some of the systems only have one, but they are available. And I guess I would encourage anyone in the audience, if they had a case study on any of these particular technologies, which you'll be able to see on the website, we do have a system where we can evaluate those technologies, make sure they are objective, transparent, not promotional, through committees at GI to then post them on the geotech tools. This is kind of the starting conditions, the initial conditions that geotech tool handles. And one of the things, not only listing the technologies, the geotech tools also has a sort of an decision-making system, and to allow someone to come in and say, this is the initial conditions that I have, what might be the best system to start to investigate. And so doing that and putting in some parameters, you will get some examples of what was programmed into geotech tools to say this type of system would be able to meet your initial conditions with these type of soil characteristics. And then you could decide. So in this case, maybe it eliminated half of the certain technologies, and then that might allow you to go further deeper into the ones that were recommended. There's also something in geotech tools called GeoSeta. It looks at boring logs. The last year we kind of married geotech tools and GeoSeta for more of a graphical representation. So each of those shields that you see on this map has a case study. So now you can decide if you wanted to use GeoSeta for some boring log information. You might be able to see that there was a case study in the vicinity. We're not doing anything more than that just now, just identifying where a case study might be located and how near it is to a boring log or boring information. When we were in California last year, I kind of just put these slides together. When you click on this shield, it takes you back to whatever case histories you got. So there's a direct link here, so you can get the geotech tools and the case histories in two different ways. We're continually to update. So just like IDEA, we have a committee looking at the IDEA protocol. The Geo-Institute technical committees are continually to look at the various functions of geotech tools and propose research, which then the GI funds in some way. So we've done some of this research here. For example, rock mechanics, that committee was able to put in a new technology. The geosynthetics committee looked at case studies, reviewed them, approved them, and got them into geotech tools. So we continually try to update that, and there is continual activity at the technical committees to do certain aspects of geotech tools. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. So let me turn this back over to Brad and see if there's any questions.
Thanks, Jeff. That was awesome. Really appreciate it, because we want to draw as much attention as possible to these two programs, quite frankly. I've got a question for you to start out with that's less of a question than it is just to get you to talk about something. And it's to go back to IDEA. Can you talk a little bit about what IDEA is not or does not do? And I'm thinking specifically about the evaluation versus endorsement part.
Right.
That's still a question I get a lot. So can you address that for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, so what's in the protocol is the real heart of that protocol is the checklist, which is the table of contents. So the earth retaining wall supplier puts that information in that table of contents. And then basically the reviewers say, does this meet AASHTO requirements? Does this have the right quality assurance provisions? Does this have the right details and testing? Not to approve, but to make sure that the product has the right information so a decision can be made by an owner. So all it really does is provide a standard protocol so an owner is used to a way information is presented, and the owner knows that it is presented in such a way that it complies with AASHTO. It has design methodology that may be LRFD. It has quality assurance provisions. All of those information's there. It's truly up to the DOT or the owner to decide if that is applicable for their environment.
Perfect. And I'm not sure that chart that you showed the one that went state by state, that didn't say. Okay, so this does say how many states require or strongly encourage an IDEA evaluation before. Perfect. So it's almost everybody.
It's almost everybody, exactly. I mean, we've been working hard on that, Brad. So I guess it seems to be working. Slowly, of course.
One question that came in from the audience is, are there any states performing seismic design of earth retaining structures within the IDEA framework?
I don't know the answer to that question, but Brad, I think we probably need to get with some of our review team professionals to answer that. So I will take that on to make sure that person gets that answer.
Fantastic. And the last thing I wanted you to address about IDEA is kind of the value proposition of it. And I know we've heard this 18,000 times, so it seems really obvious to us. But if there's a company on the fence about getting an evaluation, what's your bullet points for them? Why should they do it?
Because yeah, they should do it for, first of all, they're putting support between them and the DOT. GI has some great relationships with DOT. So first, there is some benefit, and frankly, there's some clout that the GI has as an interface between the wall supplier and the DOT, especially if they're not been in this market for a long time. Then the review teams are also recognized by DOT as being well experienced, well thought out, well theory as well as practical experience. And so that wall supplier not only gets a table of contents that the DOT understands, that wall supplier also gets the benefit of getting a label, if you will, from GI, and that I believe carries a lot of weight.
The good housekeeping seal of approval, as it were.
As it were, without the approval on it.
Now on to Geotech tools, and let's take the same company that's on the fence, and maybe they say to themselves, well, I'd like to submit a case history or a case study, but I'm afraid that it's got all this proprietary stuff in it. Other than the feeling good and helping the community, what do you tell that company that's not sure whether they should put their case histories up on that site?
Yeah, it's a good question, because we will filter it through a committee as appropriate, but that company that built it will get I guess I'll call it a byline within the case history. So they will be identified as the company that actually did this project. Now, all the other proprietary information will probably be sanitized out, but they will be able to, someone will be able to look at it and say, hey, well, let me contact this company because they know they build these type of projects. So basically a promotional aspect of it.
I'll add this.
Light.
You shouldn't be afraid that anybody's going to steal your data or your methods or anything like that. Because it's all totally voluntary when you share it. We've got about 13,000 users on the site. They spend a ton of time on the site when they access it. The average login time is something like 28 minutes, which is really, really good. So it's a valuable place. If you haven't checked it out, viewers, it would be a good thing for you to do. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so we can, and we only have 3 minutes left anyway, so we should probably wrap this thing up. Jeff, thank you so much for doing this. We are always out for our viewers spreading the gospel of Geotech tools and the IDEA program. You can always contact Jeff. You can contact me. You can contact Christina Scott and ask questions, and we are happy to tell you everything we know and even some things we don't know about either one of these programs.
You bet.
Jeff, I don't know if you have anything you want to add in closing.
No, Brad, I'm just, to me, it's an exciting way that the Geo-Institute has been able to take technology that's been developed by federal highway and state DOT and then bring it to the profession. It's just a beautiful way that a professional society should work.
Fantastic. Well, we thank you for that high compliment.
Sure.
Again, for our viewers, thank you for joining us today for the second of 3 Lunch and Learns that are part of the 2023 Geo-Institute Web Conference. The final one tomorrow will be given by our gold sponsor for the event, Keller. It will be on rigid inclusions and some work that the Deep Foundations Institute has done in that area of late. So you don't want to miss that. Next week, to wrap up the year of GI live streams, we've got 2 more on the calendar. One is GeoStrata Extra for the December-January issue, and it's on measurement while drilling. And one is the third of 4 sneak previews for Geo-Congress 2024, which is coming up in February in Vancouver. Next week, Monique Anderson from Shannon and Wilson in Seattle will be talking about the Alaska Way Viaduct project. So you also don't want to miss that. One last pitch. If you have not yet received your Carl Terzaghi bobblehead and you would like to do so, we have single-digit bobbleheads remaining. You can go to geoinstitute.org and make your contribution of at least $96 to the GI Student Participation Fund. Check off the bobblehead box, and as long as you live in the US or Canada, one will be en route to you as soon as we can get it out the door. So thanks again, Jeff, for a great presentation today. Thanks to Lauren Johnson and Sean Herpelsheimer for producing this event, making it look good, Christina Scott for putting it all together. And we will see everybody tomorrow for the third and final Lunch and Learn. Thanks, everybody. Are we off?
I don't know.
We're off YouTube.